Welcome aboard our home and trawler, Sea Venture. Join us and the crew as we travel, explore, and experience all the world has to offer. We hope your time with us entertains, inspires you to live the life of your dreams. If we can do it, you can do it. So let's cast off the lines and head out for our next adventure.
Hey everyone, we are back on the water. We just left Wrangell a little bit ago. It has been interesting finding a weather window to go.
Yeah.
But we think we've eked one out for today, so we're going to take a little trip over to Petersburg.
Petersburg, yep, a little bit of white caps out here, 17 knots of wind, but very, very nice and smooth.
Just takes a little getting used to be on the water again.
Yeah, exactly. Too much time in port makes you lazy. So,
yes, it does.
good to be on the water.
Nice to get a change of scenery. Yep. Woohoo! We just departed the Heritage Harbor and we're heading outside of town, but out in the waterway here is the barge that looks like the Tuesday barge that provides supplies to Wrangell. At least we think that's what it is.
Well, it's Tuesday.
And it's a barge. There you go.
So we'll go for that. Winter cruising in Alaska. It's pretty interesting. It's full of all by yourself. Not that there's a lot more people out in the summer, but it doesn't take long out here in the winter and you start wondering like, okay, is there anyone left on Earth? Because you can see miles in every direction and nothing. No boats, no nothing. The other part of winter cruising in Alaska is, 20 knots just seems like about as good as it gets as far as the wind. There's minor small spots and at night when it might be, when it's less, but otherwise it's pretty consistent. It seems like just one low pressure or high pressure after the other, but lots of stuff moving and just lots of wind. But pretty darn comfortable, beautiful, snow-capped mountains all around. Really can't beat it. Cruising along, really glad to be cruising and glad to kind of do a cruising video, no offense, versus just the tech talk stuff, which people really like, but is pretty consuming on our end. But that's okay, we enjoy sharing. But having said this is like primarily a cruising video, now we've got some technical cruising we're going to do up here, and it's going to kind of get techie. We thought we would, since we're going to be going up the Wrangell Narrows today, focus a little bit of video and conversation about the Wrangell Narrows. So the Wrangell Narrows is, one of a few ways you can go northbound. It's the most common as people travel in Southeast Alaska. It's nerve-wracking for lots of cruisers the first time. But be assured you don't need to be stressed about it. But we'll kind of go through it when we get up there. We've been through it on a couple other videos, but we'll talk about some of the challenges and how you deal with other boats and where the course diverges in a couple places and some of that good stuff, and the timing related to the currents.
So here's the view between Bank Island and Solikoff Island. As we sneak between them and see what happens on the other side.
As we round the corner here, entering the southern end of Wrangell Narrows on this beautiful February afternoon. I wanted to give you a few thoughts about the Wrangell Narrows and what you might consider before ever getting to where we are right now. So the Wrangell Narrows are about 20 miles long. There's about 60 navigation buoys over that 20-mile course. Now, don't be intimidated by the fact there are 60 navigation buoys. Those buoys are your friends. They tell you where not to go and where to go, so the more the merrier as far as I'm concerned. The Narrows itself is actually not that narrow, but in many areas, the channel you need to cruise in is relatively narrow. So visually, it's plenty wide enough, but there is definitely a channel, and there can be a fair amount of traffic, including tugs with large barges, and there's current. And all those things combine to sometimes make people uncomfortable with the Wrangell Narrows, especially your first trip to Alaska, your first trip through the Narrows. But it's not that difficult. With a little bit of pre-planning, it can be a really enjoyable transit. Before you ever get here to this southern or northern end of the Wrangells, I highly recommend, and I can't recommend it enough, that you take the time to plot an exact course on your chart plotter. So that is where you plan to go. I think just getting familiar with the course in your head and having in your head where you plan to go, not good enough. As you go through these Narrows, you want to be certain where you are and where you're going, and what you're seeing out the window is consistent with what's on your chart plotter and makes sense. When we get up here, and I'll show you some spots, there's a couple options of which way you can go. And as a result, you can look across in front of you and see buoys that are red, green, and it's confusing. It can be. There's going to be spots in the Wrangell Narrows where you can see up to 10 or 11 channel markers at once. And the depth perception is, not that clear. And I think it's easy to confuse which one is where. So plot your course in advance so you have a plan. Obviously, there's going to be some adjustments to that plan based on traffic or debris in the water or whatever the case might be, but have that plan in place so you know where you're supposed to be when, or at least what the plan is, and you'll save yourself from any uncertainty in the moment while transiting through the Narrows. Entering the southern end of the Narrows. Here we are. Here's one of the first markers. And if you can see on the chart, that marker is red and green. I'll show it to you out the window. There it is over there. Do we know what a red and green marker is? It means you can go on either side of it. Just don't run over it. This happens to be a big rock in the middle of the channel. Barkley. Hey, kiddo. All right, let's talk about where in the channel you should cruise. And I think this applies to all channels and can be a challenge for some boaters. When you're in a channel, I would keep in mind that the normal passing is port to port. And if you're up here and you want to try to communicate with other boats that are going the opposite direction, that may or may not be successful if they're commercial fishing boats. They may respond to you and they may not. That's their prerogative. But we cruise with the assumption that all the passing is going to be port to port. And if it's not going to be, then that may be a good time to hail someone on the radio. But when you're cruising in a channel, and especially if there's other traffic, you, in my opinion, should stay to the starboard side. Think of it as just like you're driving on the road, unless you're driving where people drive on the left side. Assuming you drive on the right side of the road. Then cruise on the right side of the channel. Then the port to port becomes apparent. And now, I don't want to offend any cruisers out there, but I'm going to tell you, I don't know how many times we've come down channels, and here comes the big boat, and sorry power boat friends, but usually it's a power boat that insist on cruising right down the middle of the channel where there's traffic. This is the exact same, again, in my opinion, and I think in a lot of very experienced boaters' opinion, and certainly commercial boat operators' opinion. It's just like a car driving right down the middle of a two-lane road because you're too afraid to get close to the curb. And if you're driving right down the middle of the road, nobody can tell where they're supposed to go. A boat going right down the middle of the channel is the exact same. It gets confusing to everybody. And then if you cruise down the middle of the channel, you want to know why it seems so difficult to figure out which way to pass. And it's because you're in the middle of the channel. If you stay to the starboard side, and don't get out of the channel where it's unsafe, stay to the starboard side, it becomes very clear that passing will be port to port, and it all just will tend to go much smoother. Now in the Wrangell Narrows, there are plenty of places, and you pay attention on your chart, that you can pull off to the side of the road. And I would recommend that if you are coming up on a large barge, a large tow, you know, they can swing all around in the current and those kind of things. And so you want to give them space, and it's no big deal. You know, the way I look at those kind of commercial tows, those are people working on making a living for, making a living, and they're earning out here on the water, and time matters. You know, we're just pleasure boaters dinging around. We can wait. What's the big deal? It's no big deal. So step out of their way, let them pass, give them plenty of room. In the Wrangell Narrows, just pull over to the side of the road and, keep steerage, keep moving. You don't need to idle, but go over to the edge, paying attention to depths, and you should be good. What a beautiful view looking forward in the Narrows. So we're coming to one of the first spots that I think tends to be confusing to boaters. Here we are on the chart. Look at that, we're gonna go right out of our cross track, and there's our cross track alarm. So let's see if I can make that alarm be quiet here for us. Sea Venture should start turning here. Let's talk about this spot here. There's two different courses. So this is a great spot to have planned a little bit ahead, but ready to go either way, depending on the situation. If you're looking out the window, you see a maze of green and red buoy markers. I can see 9 of them, and if I look out the window right now, looking across from this side to this side, I think it's hard to see in the camera, but what I see is green, green, red, green, red, 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 green, red. Huh? Let's explain what this is. The channel markers going this way, the way we've plotted our course for today, stay in the same order. If we look close over here, we can see that these markers have a C after them. And it's actually, if you look closer, you can see that it's hard to tell. Let me see if I can find a good example. This is buoy 3 here. This is 1 TC. 3 TC. TC stands for towing channel. If a tug and barge is towing, they use the TC channel, towing channel. Everyone else can go here. Think of this space as you can go either way is fine. But if a barge is going to be towing something, they'll go this way, and this becomes a passing lane. If you don't like the fact that they're going 2.5 knots, this is your opportunity to go around them. So you'll know which way they go. But it's a great spot that you need to plot your course ahead, because up ahead, looking out the window, it's just a maze of buoys that appear to ought to just switch around from red to green and make no sense. Rosie's actually driving,
autopilot was struggling a little
Yeah.
bit.
So when
Got some current.
there's a lot of current, the autopilot, you know, it just gets the boat gets pushed around. So there is current in the Wrangell Narrows, and you can time this current where it works completely in your favor or completely against you, because it floods from both the north and south, and on an incoming tide and on an ebbing outgoing tide, it ebbs out from both ends. So there's a spot in the middle where the current switches direction. So you've got it flooding into one spot and ebbing out from one spot. So if you can think about it, if you're entering from the south and it's an hour and a half up to that point in the Narrows, and you enter an hour and a half before high tide, you get flushed up to that point, then you have an outgoing tide and you get flushed out. You can use that strategy going both ways and you'll have a faster transit through the Narrows. But there's a complication related to that strategy if you're going to stop or leaving Petersburg, and that same current flows in front of and through the marina in Petersburg. Petersburg is notorious for this current that can be up to 2.5 knots in the marina, going sideways. And so you can time it to arrive in Petersburg or plan to leave Petersburg right at a slack tide, if that's more important to you than the current in the Narrows. For us, and in today's transit, we are cruising up from the south and plan to stop in Petersburg. We have elected to ignore the current in the Narrows, so there will be part of the time that we're slowed by it, part of the time that we're helped by it, but our strategy is to arrive in Petersburg close to slack tide to make the docking easier. I think if you're leaving Petersburg, our strategy has been to time the current in the Narrows so that it helps us. My only thought of that is that it's easier to leave a marina in current than it is to get into a marina in current. It's entirely up to you. If you have a boat with bow and stern thrusters and you're okay with that current, that's fine. It can be entertaining in Petersburg, and as I said, it is somewhat infamous, the Petersburg current in the marina there. Nothing to be afraid of, just need to be aware of it. Probably hard to see in the camera, but it's another spot where having your course planned out ahead of time is a good idea. Going left to right, I can see green, red, 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 green, red, red. Two of them I think are a range marker actually for a course. Off to the port right here, by the way, is a big opening, and that is the entrance where you can go behind. This is Keene Island right over here, and I call this the Keene Island anchorage. It's a little narrow spot there where the channel's pretty shallow to wind back there, but in the southern end, to me, this is a great spot to curl back in there and anchor. Moving right along, here's one of the markers. You can see the current along the base of it. Up ahead, 3 green, 3 red. We'll go down the middle of them. Trying to make a turn to starboard to do that though. Going against about a 2-knot current right now. So remember I said we would time today's transit so that we are at Petersburg close to slack to make docking easier. The price we pay for that is we're going to spend about 1 hour with a 2-knot current against us. And then that's going to be followed by 2 hours of the current with us. Just happens to be how it turned out today, but it's okay. It's very relaxing. In the Wrangell Narrows, you are going to cruise, 100, 150 feet from the rocks in 2 knots of current. So you do have to be paying attention, but it's nothing to be frightened of. It's kind of a fun little challenge and something different than just big open water. besides all the buoys, like up ahead, Wrangell Narrows has a lot of range markers as well. This pair we happen to be right on. The idea is you line them up and then you know you're on course. You distinguish range markers from red buoys in that range markers are red with a white stripe down the middle. And it's the white stripes you're lining up. They may be to your port and they may be to your starboard. So ignore the red right kind of thing, or they're not buoys, they're range markers. So you do need to be able to distinguish the difference, and you can use them. They're really helpful at night, by the way, because they're lit up. If you're so inclined to do Wrangell Narrows in the dark. As you're cruising along in the Wrangell Narrows, thinking of all these little technical issues and stuff to get through successfully, let's not forget, this is a beautiful passage because it winds around. It's got a whole flavor of different kinds of homes on it. It's got mountains all around on all sides, whether you're here in the summer or the winter. If we look over here, look at the view in the winter, of course you're surrounded by snow-capped peaks and hills. We're approaching confusion point number 2 in the Wrangell Narrows for a lot of cruisers, because we're at another spot where you can go 2 different ways. And coming from the south, what looks confusing is that way up here I can see a green buoy right up there. Right up there. There's also a green buoy way over there, but there's one way up over there where you go around. So where are we going? Here, if you look on the chart, we've plotted the course around this way, but you can see there's a green buoy way over here. It's not for this channel. There's a second channel, and I've drawn a line here for you. This is the way almost all commercial boats you'll see going will take, and so that can be a little bit confusing. So here you can go either way. This way is a little more shallower, but you'll often see commercial boats take this corner route. And it's not just cutting a corner, it's a marked channel with buoys. But if you don't realize it's there, having a green buoy over there closer to you than the green buoy way over there can be quite confusing. But we're going to go around the outside route today. There's a close-up view of one of the range markers, not a red channel marker, range marker.
It's low tide in Wrangell Narrows.
Here at one spot looking forward, I can count 15 channel markers at one time I can see. How cool is that? Approaching downtown Petersburg. Trying to target getting here at slack tide. We're off a little bit, so actually we've been cruising for a little bit at all of 560 RPM, which is carrying us at 4.1 knots still due to the current, but that's okay. Time to get ready to dock.
Let's go past the cannery.
Yeah, and then I think between the 2 finger piers sticking out, right?
Yeah, I
so I think it's going to be behind the big blue boat. Rose.
Yep. She said you will see Kestrel, I think, at the end.
Well, I think that's going to be the big blue boat. It's the one out on the end. You can see it on AIS, pointed that way. It's the big blue one.
Yes.
So
I
behind
think
it.
we'll go this way of it.
Yeah, so that's between the two
Right.
docks.
Yeah.
We go in
Right
there.
in here.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty close to where, oops, sorry, where we were before. Aiden from the end, Wiley King and Idle Time are the two we're going between.
Wiley King is first. Here in Petersburg at the dock in the North Marina. Beautiful, the sun is shining right now. It's 10 minutes to 5. The cats are very excited to be in the new view, which is kind of cool. Ended up docking with about a knot or knot and a half of current. Definitely you can feel it and notice it and have to be prepared for it. But all is good. Here looking at a picture of the marina, you can see this is Sea Venture right here. The dock is clearly a little bit off from where it shows. I think if you can see this whole track here, I think we're in the exact same slip, or maybe we were that slip right next to us in 2018. I don't know. Our tracks look like they go almost to the same spot. Something I wanted to show you. We just did our bulbous bow stuff. You think bulbous bows are popular in Alaska on fishing boats? Look at that sign. This has been an issue in Wrangell because the water line is outside of the dock. So this is, I mentioned to you, in Wrangell, a lot of commercial fishermen, when docking their boats, just go put their bulbous bow against the dock to hold it. But not here in Wrangell, because if you do, you'll crush the water line. Also here in this North Marina, one of the questions they ask you before giving you a slip is, does your boat have an isolation transformer? Because if it does not, and there is absolutely any stray current whatsoever, you cannot plug in. It will trip the breaker and not operate. Thankfully, as part of our electrical upgrade in 2018, we added an isolation transformer, so we're good. Time to go up and check in and see what's happening in Petersburg. Except when we called to make our slip assignment, they let us know that right now they're having a little bit of a COVID outbreak and most everything is shut down. We were in Petersburg during the tanner crab season. This is an annual 6-day commercial fishery for tanner crab, which kind of look like king crab if you're not super familiar with different crab species. From the bow of Sea Venture, we could watch the boats unloading day and night as they wrapped up their 6-day season. We ended up spending 3 nights in Petersburg. The original plan was to create a video for you of a little tour of the town like we just finished up with Wrangell. But due to the COVID outbreak in town, everything was closed. They went from no cases to, by the time we were leaving, 52 cases, along with 3 hospitalizations in just a few days. They were working on contact tracing, trying to figure out the source, but in the interim, all businesses were pretty much closed. So while we arrived on a Tuesday, that Friday we had a weather window to return toward Wrangell. We knew that if we didn't take this day, we may be in Petersburg several more days. And while monthly and annual moorage is relatively inexpensive in Southeast Alaska, daily transient rates not so much. So for our 3 days was $153 at the dock, and since we really weren't in a position to go to shore, we decided to head on back to Wrangell, wishing everyone in Petersburg all the best as they worked to eliminate this current outbreak of COVID-19 in their community. Wrangell Narrows cruising alert. Wrangell Narrows cruising alert. There are orca whales right in front of the boat.
We're skirting along the port side of the channel because the whales kind of went to the starboard side, trying to give them that room. So you can see all the mud over there as we're right on the edge. And I wanted to grab these guys. At the south end of the Narrows. Anchored out or sitting around here. A tug nestled inside a barge pushing it along, it looks like. We just exited the Wrangell Narrows and we are heading eastbound towards Wrangell. About 17 knots of wind behind us, so about 24 knots of wind, and the current should be in our direction. We got a good bit of little white caps from the wind, I think, on the water. But the sun is out and it looks like a nice smooth ride. Otherwise, we're certainly not pitching at all, but like I said, the wind's from behind us.
Well, we hope you enjoyed this overview of the Wrangell Narrows today. We had a great time filming and bringing it to you. Make sure, if you haven't already, check out our website, cruisingseaventure.com. Lots more content there, blogs, photos, the videos all organized and stuff. You can even join the Venture Club down at the bottom of the page. No worries, it's all free. You get early access to the videos if I get the editing done in time. We'll continue our winter cruising in Southeast Alaska and continue to make videos for you and look forward to sharing. Don't forget to comment if you want to. Give it a thumbs up. All those things are great. We enjoy getting to share and meeting everybody. Until next time, wishing you no wind and flat seas.